Roll whenever you're ready.
Great. Thanks,
Thank
James.
you.
So this is the Iron Applications Throwdown. We are, I forget our team name, I think we're Team Healthy Choices. I think that was our name, Healthy Choice Team, something like that. I'm Sheeri Cabral. Unfortunately, Bradley Brown could not be with us, but he will be with us in spirit, and we'll see some video from him later on. Let's just get right down to it. Our ingredient choices, okay? We chose Oracle Application Express for the web presentation layer. We mostly chose this not just because Bradley was experienced with it, because obviously one of the reasons you choose something is because you're familiar with it, you know how it's going to interact with other things, but because it has such a wide range of export formats it can do, and it just has a lot of features that it can do. A lot of the features that we wanted to put in the application, it just does magically, like being able to export in CSV format versus PDF format. So those kind of were just given to us by using Oracle Application Express. We also have some mobile clients, to be able to use it on Android and iOS, which is iPhone, iPad, and BlackBerry, we're using mobile clients. Data web services, so to be able to have data web services, we're using Oracle integration. And then for the database layer itself, we're using the MySQL database, and we've also created some diagrams with MySQL Workbench. Now this is our N-tier architecture, so if you really needed to scale it out and be huge, you could do that. It is very small to see. I can show people slides and all that kind of stuff. But basically up here on the client tier, we have computers and mobile devices and all, any kind of device that's going to show up. We actually decided with web services not just to have a browser-based application, because even though the iPhone, the Android, and all that stuff is good with web browsers, we wanted a mobile application as well. So we actually designed both. And you'll see video for both. Part of that is also because when you're going between sessions, between the rooms, the Wi-Fi isn't necessarily so great. Or if you're walking from your hotel on over, there is no Wi-Fi. So to be able to have a mobile app where things are stored, and you can see, okay, what's my next session, what's my next room, is actually very useful. So we didn't go just HTML or browser, which we'll see on the next slide. But I wanted to show you because the client tier is not just going to a web browser. So down here in the presentation layer tier, it's mostly just Oracle Apex, and Bradley did a good job. There's BAM here, all that kind of stuff. So most of the spiciness happens in the AppX layer, the Applications Express layer. Under the application tier, there are iRespective application servers, and he's made a nice, scalable, highly available architecture here. It seems like way overkill for what we were asked to do. We weren't asked to do any scalability really at all. But he put that in there because you're going to want that. When you go to a conference, you don't want to hit a denial of service error because too many people are going to the web page at one time. And then down here we have the database server tier, which right now is MySQL, but it could be really anything because you're just using SQL to connect. We use MySQL for speed, reliability, and ease of failover and all that kind of stuff. So again, multi-device, we could go HTML browser only, not just going on a laptop, but also going from your devices. But we decided to go with both a browser-based app and a mobile app. Part of the challenge was to do multiple outputs, and because we used Oracle Applications Express, it makes it really easy to do PDF, XML, spreadsheet, text, CSV, VCal, so you can just kind of add right to my calendar. So here's a couple screenshots of the feature of Add to My Calendar. We use the industry standard ICS format, so it's for iCal, for Mozilla Calendar, Outlook, all that kind of stuff. It's a branch to a PLSQL page, and obviously MIME type is very important here. So I don't know if you can see over here, this screen here is talking about the user account. So you're adding a user account in there, and it's talking about expiring your account. So it can also expire on a calendar day, and you can put that in there. Here's some of the guts of the code. Bradley is definitely the coder here. So you're wiping out the buffer, you're doing all this stuff, you're getting the event information, and here's where I think you're printing out. Here's begin the event, and here's the organizer mail to brad@tusk.com. So it's who you're sending it to. And here's a reminder for the account expiring. So this is how you can get alerts as well. And here's how to add a contact. So not only would, say, organizers add content because, hey, someone registered, so add content. You can also add your friends. We'll see some friend stuff later on about how you'd say, oh, what are my friends going to? That's where I want to go to also. Again, you have your industry standard VCF format, blah, blah, blah. This top screenshot here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but the top one is the detail ad for the contact. So it's got name and email address and company and regular address and SMS, where do you text to, all that kind of stuff, and the preferences. Do you want to be texted with mobile alerts? And down here, there's just a list of, this is kind of an admin interface of, okay, this person has been added. So you can add that in and put that in there. So here's the guts of contacts. So all this stuff, by the way, is all code. Bradley actually coded this up. I don't have a demo server, but in the video, you'll actually see he's using a demo server. So we can give you this code. We have no problem with that. The idea was we didn't want to just make a really awesome application idea. We wanted to make something people could use, because it was very obvious to us that this is a practical application. So we kind of spent a little more time on actually making it real as opposed to whiz-bang stuff. We have some whiz-bang stuff as well. So here's the guts of the contact stuff. Again, wiping out the buffer, getting the V card, printing it out. There's nothing really sexy here. This is just kind of showing how powerful the application Express is. At least for me, it's what I see. This is how it's powerful. It's not really hard to print out different fields in different ways, whether you're printing it out in text CSV or this is printing it out in the V card format. We were asked to do historical analysis, and it's very easy to upload files to be able to do this analysis. So you can export from the database and import into Application Express, or if you have from previous years, you can actually import that in so that you can use that not just for this year or next year, the first year that you use this application, but also for previous years if you have an extract of data. You would obviously provide a mapping when you upload the file. You can allow certain people to upload data, and Brad actually coded this before for customers. This is actually something that will, in fact, work. What about alternative sessions? So this is something that's actually pretty cool. I made a stored procedure in the MySQL database, which could be turned into an event, which is basically a scheduled task. I gave a rating. There's a presentation suggestions table, which has a list of presentation IDs and the suggestion, and then a relevance link. So basically, you can get the top 5 most relevant sessions according to this session. And to do relevancy, we figured there were 2 things we wanted to be relevant. One was the tags. So if something has BI tag, we wanted 2 presentations that have BI tag to be related to each other. And the other was, so that's what this does. This is in the stored procedure. It goes through each presentation, and then for each tag for that presentation, it finds all the other presentations with that tag, and in the presentation suggestions table, updates each row, because each row is a presentation ID and a suggestion ID. So it's 2 presentations, so each one is related to each other. So let's say there's a tag BI, and that BI tags in 5 other presentations. There'd be 5 rows updated with that. It gives it a +5 relevancy. For each row in the schedules, you have all other, so schedules is who's attending what. So basically you take an attendee and you find any row in schedules, you take that attendee ID and you find what else they are attending. So for example, there's more relevancy, not just if they have the same tag, but if somebody decides to go to 2 of them. Not as much because the weight is only +1. This is obviously very easily fixed, changeable if you wanted to have the weight to be +2 or if you wanted the weight to be equal. But we figured if 100 people decided to go to the same class, or if 100 people went to the same 2 courses, they're probably more related in that, hey, if you go to this class, you may be interested in this session as well. So, we figure you could run it hourly or nightly or whatever. It doesn't have to run every time somebody updates anything. And it's basically just a lookup table, so you can just look it up right then and there. And I actually have that here. So you can see presentation suggestions. And in fact, let me just show you what presentation suggestions looks like. It's really kind of boring. Here's the presentation ID, this is the presentation ID of the suggestion, and this is the relevancy. If we do a couple of joins to the presentations table and get the title, so we have original title set, suggested title, and relevancy, and in fact I'm going to order by relevancy descending. So we can see that the original title is BI Publisher, Hands-On Lab, and the suggested title is What's New in Oops. Sorry, it's a little too powerful a tool. I don't want to sort they share a lot of tags. This is something that shares a bunch of tags, but also has one attendee, I know because it's 76, or maybe it's 6 attendees in common. I know I set up a bunch of this data, so it's easy to import the tags from the existing this year's API, but we just made up a few users, so there aren't too many users to make up. So you can actually see the relevancy, and over time you can actually see how the relevancy will change, because the number of tags in common won't necessarily change, but certainly the number of attendees that go to both sessions will change. And I think it's a very good idea to not just go by the tags, but also by who's interested in it, because it really is, hey, other people who are interested in this session also went to that session. And kind of if you're interested in X, you might be interested in Y. So we're using both the tags and the presentation tags for that. So I'm going to get back to the slide, because when we leave the presentation, we go to the slide. Here we are. Slideshow. So this is the store procedure, and you can run it whenever you want. You can run it every 5 seconds. You can run it after every update to the table if you wanted. That would probably get too big. But it creates a lookup table. So all you have to do is look up and say, okay, show me the suggestions for this presentation. And that's all you have to do. So it's very easy to figure that out, because you're doing this calculation ahead of time. If there are session changes or there are any alerts, don't forget to go to the keynote, anything like that. Easily done with the information in the database using email and text messages. What about some social media? We added some like functionality in Facebook and Twitter. So this is an example of like functionality on Facebook, where it takes the information of the session, and you can say, oh, I'm going to attend this, or I'm interested in this. We did actually give features that you can have a first choice and second choice, so that you can always have more than one second choice, but you have one first choice, and if that's full, then you can go to something else, or if you realize, hey, I don't think I like that speaker, I want to go to my second choice, and you can get suggestions from both, but you can also like on Facebook and Twitter both of them. You can serve up the data via services such as Google Visualization. So all these dots here are actually different users and all that kind of stuff. So this would be more on the internal side. Maybe for local user groups, you might want this kind of information, so you can export that out and you can see, okay, what sessions did the people in this area go to? Maybe what kind of content would they want more from their home base? What more stuff would they kind of want? So that would be good. So now let's get into some of the technical things. This is the entity relationship diagram. This is done in MySQL Workbench. And basically in the middle here, we have attendees and presentations. These two kind of join with the most. So the biggest one is presentations. And that has a presenter ID, a speaker ID, a title, a group name. So the group name would be OAUG or IOUG or whatever. The experience level, beginner, whatever, all that kind of stuff, and then the time slot. So there's different time slots that can be overlapping. So the time slots table that has the date of the week, it has the ID of it, the date of the week, when it begins, when it ends, and the group name. So there might be overlapping ones. IOUG may have something that begins at noon, and OAUG may have something that begins at 12:15. You can have overlapping ones because the primary key is just the ID. So it's totally okay for groups to have overlapping ones or not. The only restriction, obviously here, because you have day of week and begin time, end time, it's set up for a conference that goes for no longer than 1 week. That's easily changeable, but since we knew that it didn't go over 1 week, we're fine. And you can't start and end on a different date, which I don't think really is a problem. But we want to give all our constraints ahead of time. Now, the presenter has a presenter ID, which joins the attendees table. This is on the assumption that everyone who's a presenter is also going to be attendee, which everyone who presents gets an admission. So not everyone who's in the attendees table is in the presentations table, but everyone who's in the presentation table has a presenter ID in the attendees table. And there can also be a joining table if folks really want in the presentation details of other speakers who are going to attend. And that way they're already pre-populated. They're probably going to be the first one to pick what other sessions they're going to. You can encourage them to do